Oh, I hear you. You're well-educated people. You've heard the arguments. Yes, brother, I understand that, but you see what happened was there were individuals who came and doctored the Bible up, and it's been translated so many times, and it's been changed so many times. And when I talk to college students sometimes, they tell me about this myth of these overzealous monks who went out and changed the Bible so that things would match up, so that it would look like we have older documents than we actually have. And in fact, and I think they're really telling me something when they tell this, we don't have any of the originals. Like I'm supposed to shake in my boots when they tell me that. Listen to me. If overzealous monks want to change the Bible, can I explain to you what they would have had to do? 3 levels of conspiracy. Level number 1, they would have had to have a manuscript conspiracy. When we're talking about just the New Testament itself, there are over 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament itself. Now, that may not sound like a lot to you, but can I compare it to a couple of things? Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. That's how we know about Julius Caesar and his conquest. We have around 10 manuscripts. Aristotle's Poetics. We have nearly 5 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Herodotus, we have less than 10 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Homer, less than 10 of each of his writings. When it comes to the New Testament, we have 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament. Folks, that's not even close. Well, you don't have the originals. No, we really don't. But guess what? We can get earlier than AD 120 with some of the copies that we have. When it comes to Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 900 years after the original. But nobody's tearing down the walls in college because they're reading Caesar. When it comes to Aristotle, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 1,400 years after the original. But when it comes to the New Testament, we can put our hands on documents that were written within decades of the originals. So if these overzealous monks wanted to doctor the Bible, what they would have to do is find over 6,000 manuscripts, change all of them, not show their ink work, get them all back where they stole them from, and never tell anybody what they did. That's just level number 1. Here's level number 2. Jesus said, go and make disciples of ta ethne, every people group. Funny thing about people groups, they tend to speak different languages. So within the first few centuries, we have the Bible translated into Syriac, Coptic, and Latin. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 Greek manuscripts, change those, doctor them up, don't show your ink work, get them back, go find all the Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations of those Greek manuscripts, change those to match the lies that you told in another language, and get those back where you stole them from. And that's just level number 2. Now you got level number 3. The early church fathers had this terrible habit of writing commentary on the New Testament. So much so that Bruce Metzger argues, if all we had of the New Testament was the quotations and citations by the early church fathers, we could reproduce over 95% of the New Testament just from their writings. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 manuscripts and portions of manuscripts, steal them, change them, don't show your ink work, get it back without anybody finding out. They got to find Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations, change those to match the lies that they told in the 6,000 manuscripts, get those back where they stole them from, and then find all of the writings of all of the early church fathers, change those to match the lies that they told 2 layers ago, get those put back, never tell anybody what they did, and never ever get caught. Help you if you believe that. We have a reliable collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. So far, we just got a good history book. Now it gets good. They report to us supernatural events. Look at what he says here. Verse 17. For when he received honor and glory from God the Father, such an utterance as this was made to him by the majestic glory. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. And we ourselves heard this utterance made from heaven when we were with him on the holy mountain. Now we got the Mount of Transfiguration. Now we got supernatural events, not superhuman events. We have supernatural events. Stuff you can't get good enough to do. We're not talking about psychosomatic healings. We're talking about a woman with an issue of blood who is healed instantly. We heard earlier about the man with a withered hand, healed instantly. Men who were blind from birth, deaf from birth, mute from birth. Men who were lame from birth, healed instantly. One of my favorites. Jesus tells the disciples, y'all go over to the other side of the lake, I'll meet you. Later on the boat, somebody, I don't know who, they say, hey, did Jesus say how he was coming? No, why? Because he coming. Or my favorite of them all, Friday, dead. Sunday, risen. We have a reliable collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. They report to us supernatural events, and those events took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies. We're not talking that General Nostradamus type stuff. Specific prophecies. For example, when Jesus is on the cross, interestingly, when he's on the cross, I don't know, let's just imagine, go back, shall we, if we will. Let's go back out in the first century, and we're Jewish people, and we probably talk about our Old Testament. Maybe we use Aramaic when we speak to one another. And I want you to open your Bible, for example, to Psalm number 22, which is where we're going here for a moment. If I wanted you to do that, I couldn't tell you to open to Psalm number 22, because we've only had chapters and verses for a few hundred years. If it was the first century and I was speaking to you in Aramaic and I wanted you to turn to Psalm number 22, I would have to tell you to turn to the title of Psalm number 22, which would have been the first line of Psalm number 22. So I'd have to tell you to open your scroll to Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, or my God, why have you forsaken me? Now that ought to sound familiar, because that's exactly what Jesus said while he was being crucified. I know you know this, but I like it so much. Let's do it anyway. Psalm number 22, verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me? Look at verse 6. I'm a worm and not a man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. All who see me sneer at me. They separate with the lip. They wag the head saying, commit yourself to the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him because he delights in him. Sound familiar? That's what's being said to Jesus while he's being crucified. Look at verse 12. Many bulls have surrounded me. Strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and roaring lion. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. Interesting. Pierce him in the side, puncture the pericardium, blood and water rush out. Look at verse 15. My strength is dried up like potsherd and my tongue cleaves to my jaws. How about this wine vinegar on this sponge, Jesus? Because you did say I thirst. Verse 16. Dogs have surrounded me. Folks, that's Gentiles. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. One on the right and one on the left. They pierce my hands and my feet. I can count all of my bones. Why? Because nobody had to break your legs to hasten your death. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Folks, that was written 1,000 years before Jesus was born. It was written by a man who never once saw crucifixion in his life, because crucifixion had not yet been invented. That is why Peter can say, back in our passage, verse 19, so we have the prophetic word made more sure.